So, welcome back to Tara Institute. My name's Damien, and I've been doing this month's Monday nights. And excuse me. So this is the fifth one of the Monday nights, and the last. And we have been discussing cause and effect. And so generally, cause and effect is referred to as an extremely hidden phenomena. You know, the actual workings of cause and effect is described as being extremely hidden. And for us as ordinary beings, pretty much the only option we have is to take it on faith. But I've been trying to sort of show some of the aspects of cause and effect, so that we can have some, maybe some experiential evidence for us to think that cause and effect may be true. And as I've said in previous weeks, we can look at the world in a simple scientific way, that there's this vast collection of living beings on this world, and there's this huge variation or variety of life forms and life experience from all these different creatures on the earth. And then if we honestly look at our experience, our circumstances, we have to recognise that we are extremely fortunate. You know, if it just so happens that instantly all these different living beings suddenly appear on the earth, you know, due to some scientific thing, and there's just this vast variety of life forms suddenly appear, then we have to accept that we really have won the lottery. If it's a lottery, we've won the lottery. If it was God creating the world in this way, then for whatever reason we are extremely fortunate due to that creation. And if it's cause and effect that has done it, we are again extremely fortunate in this life that we have. And so we can even, I think it's worthwhile just on that simple scientific mechanism, you know, without thinking that there's any creator or any dependent arising or any other agency that somehow justifies this life, merely on the fact of the life as it is, we should accept that we are extremely fortunate. So that opportunity, we can view it as an opportunity. And from a Buddhist point of view, that opportunity is not only just in being human, but also in finding by some chance, you know, the teachings of the Buddha, and within our mind, within our own mind, a disposition to accept the teachings of the Buddha. You know, through you know, we don't react against them. So that's, from a Buddhist point of view, that's another aspect of great fortune. And that's why, so in addition to being human, we may also come to understand that we also have these particular characteristics of a human life that give us some disposition towards the spiritual tradition of the Buddha's teachings. And so that additional agreement or additional ingredient is causes, this as a perfect human rebirth, because it has that additional factor. So we can assume that coming here indicates that we may have that additional ingredient. So to see this as a unique opportunity. So an opportunity implies looking forward. So it's an opportunity to do something with this human life, to do something worthwhile. And we can think of that as being something worthwhile for myself or something worthwhile for others. So that the question then is, what is worthwhile to do with your life? That's the big question. And so from a Buddhist point of view, the worthwhile things to do with this life are, because this life is so good, that we should accumulate the causes to have another life like this, or better. And then the second opportunity is for us to see that this whole pattern of what's called cyclic existence, of continually taking rebirth under the force of cause and effect, that this is an endless, unsatisfactory experience. And so to use this life to find the antidote to that circumstance, and so then to achieve a personal liberation from this repeating cycle of rebirth. And then the third great opportunity of this life is for us to work towards the possibility of benefiting all other beings by achieving a state of enlightenment, which is a state that is fully perfected in all of the capabilities possible and fully purified of all negativities. So those are the three, we could say they're referred to as the three scopes of human beings. Like the three opportunities that we have. And one thing to notice about those three opportunities is that they are all beyond this life. And so there's an implication there that any activity that is merely focused on this life, like being famous or being hugely wealthy, having a beautiful house, having a lot of cars, having high reputation, being famous, engaging in a lot of pleasurable activities, that focus on things that are merely constrained to this life doesn't enter the picture of finding the best purpose of this life. So from a Buddhist point of view, that's something important to recognize, is that all of the worldly activities, anything that is just constrained to this lifespan, is, in a bigger picture, is pretty much meaningless. So that's that's one thing to consider. So, as we have done in the previous weeks, when we start to think about this and start to really understand what a precious opportunity this life is, no matter what struggles we might have in sickness or in mental conditions or our circumstances, that we are so fortunate. And so to generate a motivation, for, like in this class, to just just very briefly reflect on the circumstances of every other living being so that you can really see this fortunate opportunity that I have. Think that way. Think this fortunate opportunity that I have, and so generate a motivation to use this opportunity to benefit others. So just spend 20 seconds generating a thought like that. That as much as possible, I will try to use this short human life as an opportunity to benefit others. Yeah, and so we've been talking about cause and effect, and initially I did have the intention of sort of going into a lot of the mechanics and the detailed presentation, but I'm not. I think if you're interested in that, there's lots of books that you can read that go through all these different circumstances of karma, but we'll just recap some of the key points. So when we do an action, so we can talk about an action in very simple terms: a basis, an urge, then the action, and then a sort of a sense of completion. So in terms of, let's say, in terms of killing, there's a person or a living creature, some living animal, and we're very clear as to who or what that is. An ant or a cockroach or whatever, a human, whatever. We're very clear about who or what that is. And then we have the urge. And the urge can be out of anger, or it could be out of desire. So, for instance, having the desire to have a super clean kitchen bench, we see all the insects and stuff, and so we kill them out of that force of desire to have a clean workspace. Or, out of the jealousy towards a neighbour or something, maybe we then poison their dog or their cat or something, like these things happen. So there's an urge, and that urge can be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be anger, in the case of killing. So we have the basis, the urge, and then we think about how we're going to do it. And then we do it. So those aspects of action. And then we accomplish the death of the insect or the person or the cat or the dog or the goat, the sheep, the camel, the elephant, whatever it is. We accomplish it. So in our mind we have a sense of completion and potentially a sense of joyfulness in finishing that act. Right, so those four elements are very important, and the strength of those four elements affect the strength of the result. So if the person we kill is our mother or our father or a holy person, like somebody who's benefiting the world in an incredible way, if that's the person that we kill, then if our urge is something that is built up over many, many years and is a very, very strong, really intense, passionate urge to kill, that is a thing that strengthens the karmic result. And then if our method of killing is something particularly cruel and torturous and has some sort of element of really trying to increase the suffering of the animal or the person. And then if our sense of rejoicing is so definite and so powerful These are all aspects that make the karmic result much stronger. So that indicates that for instance, that if we, out of ignorance, or you think, oh, it's nighttime, I've got to go to the bathroom, and so you walk and you kill a whole lot of insects or something, the intention is not strong. The targeted basis is not there. You're not individually saying, I'm going to stand on that ant or that silverfish or something. You're not particularly identifying. And then the action is not premeditated, and it's sort of by, not wanting to turn the light on or there's still some sort of negative action. And then your sense of rejoicement in the action is really not there either. So they're all factors that diminish an act, the power of an act. So if you happen to walk out of the supermarket and there was one item left in the bottom of your bag that you didn't put through the register, and you sort of come out and you think, oh, it's my lucky day. I've got an extra picnic bar that I didn't pay for. But you can see that there's still some sort of negativity, but the power of that negativity is maybe not as great as intentionally working yourself up. I'm going to go to the supermarket and I'm going to knock off a whole lot of stuff and I'm going to run out the door. And so the intensity of our actions is a factor in how we accumulate karma, and that affects the results. Anyway, I'm sure you know how to think about this yourselves. It's pretty straightforward that we can see that we can do a lot of different actions with different sorts of the importance of the object, the strength and the power and the length of the duration of my motivation. So if we work for 20 years trying to have revenge with somebody, you can see that that's going to be a powerful action because it's been in our mind for so long. And so we've set up a disposition which is very powerful. Similarly with doing positive things for others, like the act of generosity, to see a person, sitting outside the supermarket with their hat on the ground. So in a sense they are asking for generosity. And so in my mind, I can think, I might end up putting some money in their hat, thinking there's somebody watching me and they'll think I'm a really kind and generous person. So that's then done out of a motivation of seeking reputation and seeking praise and fame from others. It's got nothing to do with generosity. So the urge has to be the sense of giving to the person something that will benefit them. And so that has to be very clear when we're doing something positive. Sitting here teaching has to, this can be done out of a sense of pride or a sense of fame or a sense of, all sorts of different motivations that diminish the actual act of teaching. So it's very important to try to look in your mind and trying to make sure that you do things, let's say in the act of giving, you don't do them out of a sense of obligation or a sense of reputation or pride or showing off. And that when you talk to the person or offer to the person, that you're not doing it out of a sense of superiority or pity or, just as well as you can to give something that benefits. And, overcoming overcoming like some sense of superiority or disgust, disgust with this beggar. These are all things that contaminate our actions. From a Buddhist point of view, they become contaminants of our act of generosity. And so then we have the thought, I've given the money, and we have a sense of rejoicing in having given that money. So these are all aspects that to try to cultivate these different introspections. This is where the qualities of mindfulness and introspection become very important. For us to be self-aware of any action that we're doing, and so to move those actions into the best outcome that we can create. So, in terms of karma, there's what's called a throwing karma, and so like this life for me as a human is something that has been, let's say, thrown, from the past, somehow thrown by the past, and then my consciousness has somehow entered at the fetus at the time of conception, and so I have this human life. So this human life primarily is, we can say it's a life force, and my lifespan is also part of that throwing action. And so we might wish to live for 1,000 years, but the lifespan of a human, although it's not fixed, my lifespan is a certain throwing lifespan. And if all goes really well, I will live that lifespan and then pass away. But there are many, many things in our life that we can do that actually shorten our lifespan. So this is where, you might think that, and there's a bit of a move of people who think that we should be able to live forever. Well, from a cause and effect point of view, that's just not going to happen. We have a certain lifespan, and if we really look after our health and we don't go doing reckless things, if we watch what we eat and drink and consume and watch our physical actions and our exposure to danger, then we can live out pretty close to our lifespan. But we can very easily diminish our lifespan by different things that we do. So that's the throwing karma. And then our day-to-day experiences can be what's called completing karmas, and that can be a whole variety of things to do with the way our circumstances come to us. So there was a question last week about whether we have free will. And so the answer in a way is dependent on what you want to be and what your free will thinks it can do. So at this moment I'm a human, and my free will cannot say, at this moment, I'd rather be an elephant. I don't have that free will to be something other than what I have, this particular existence, what it is. And even we can say that my previous karmas are presenting me with a whole lot of conditions. So one way we can sort of view our day-to-day karma is that our day-to-day karma presents us with circumstances. It presents us with circumstances, and in the aspect of karma, where the result is similar to the cause in terms of experience. This is the one I think about a lot for myself. The results similar to the cause in terms of experience and in terms of disposition. So I can think that my previous karma is presenting me with conditions. And in those conditions that I'm presented with, I then will experience happiness or unhappiness, pain, suffering, joy, delight. I will experience these different things. And so any circumstance, even like this little circumstance here, is this a good circumstance or a bad circumstance? I would say it's neither. And the fact that this is we can look at it like this. This is a condition that is presenting itself to us now. And so I have an opportunity to view it as unpleasant, or I have an opportunity to view it as pleasant. And whether I view it as unpleasant or pleasant is entirely dependent on my mind. Entirely dependent on my mind. So in my case, I changed that light bulb yesterday. And I put that particular light bulb in there, and I grabbed it out of a box. So I've got an opportunity to even feel much more guilty than any of you for creating that circumstance, right? And I might even have the opportunity to feel shame and embarrassment that I went to the effort yesterday to change it. But the point is, it's neither, in a way, that condition is neither good nor bad, other than what I decide it to be. And so that's why the karmic result of results similar to the cause in terms of experience is important to understand, because if you look at the world, you can see that different people, different circumstances, for one person is a disaster in their mind, and for another person it's fantastic. And even in terms of the physical opportunity, one person's disaster is another person's godsend. It happens all the time. And so that shows that the absolutism of the environment that we live in, there is no absolutism to that environment in terms of a person's experience. And even this circumstance, so we could say this little circumstance has been incredibly beneficial to demonstrate this point, right now. So we might think it's a fortunate opportunity. But it's not any of those, it's merely a flashing light. All the rest of it comes from my mind. And that's important with any circumstance in life that presents it to you, that your experience of it comes from your mind, your experience, not the circumstance itself. So then the other aspect that we talked about is recognising our dispositions. And recognising our dispositions as being the result of previous karma. And so one aspect of that is that that if we are, a very angry person, that in a way we don't have to accept being permanently angry. We don't have to accept being permanently jealous. We don't have to accept being permanently low self-esteem or bitter or resentful. We can start to see that if I create the causes for the reverse, then I can transform my personality or my dispositions to whatever is beneficial. So one aspect of cause and effect is that it shows you that everything can be changed. And everything can be changed for the better, or everything can be changed to the worse from our own actions and our own thinking. So, in terms of free will, our dispositions are very strong, and so we may feel like we do not have free will to combat jealousy, or we don't have free will to combat resentment and antagonism towards others or competitiveness. But the reality is these are just dispositions which have been created by various causes. And so if we create the causes for the reverse mental states, then we can create a mind of love and compassion, or joyfulness, or rejoicing in others' actions, rejoicing in others' virtue and others' success. Patience, all of these things we can generate. So this week I was thinking in regards to that question about free will. In the Four Noble Truths, it says that the first noble truth is the truth of suffering. That this life, and sometimes I prefer the translation, the truth of dissatisfactoriness. That this life is unsatisfactory or dissatisfactory, and that the truth is that there is no satisfaction. Then the causes for that life, the causes for that are karma, which we've been talking about, cause and effect. And so that cause and effect is producing the conditions of our life. And then the second cause is our mental afflictions. So our engagement in mental afflictions. And that's where we have the potential for complete control over our generating afflictions. So, do we have a way to mitigate our experience in life? Do we actually have the freedom to change or to mitigate our experience in life? And so I think one technique to talk about tonight is generating the mind of contentment. So if we think about any circumstance that we get presented with, let's say even like this flickering light globe, our inclination is to be annoyed. My inclination is to be annoyed. And like in my case, with having changed that particular light bulb yesterday, my inclination is to be very annoyed. Because I'm responsible. I am responsible for creating that circumstance. And I'm as annoyed as hell. Right? Maybe, So the attitude of contentment, of maybe some sort of resilience and of not being too invested, not to be too invested in the circumstance. So the mind of contentment is, good or bad circumstances, I'm content. And I think if you can generate that sort of mind of contentment, then there's less chance for you to overreact with anger or to overreact with jealousy or, extreme pride, superiority, aggression. The mind of contentment. The mind of contentment, if you start to look at it, it diminishes all of those strong responses. Really strong attachment and desire to something. If you're walking down the street and you see in a shop window the new iPhone or the latest something or other, or a new dress or a pair of shoes, and the mind of attachment is so intense, and you think, I must have that, and I must have it now. And if I have it, my happiness will be fully accomplished. So the mind of contentment is an antidote to that. It's, you walk past and you might admire the qualities of the object. You might admire the qualities of the object. You might recognize the anger that somebody else is showing you. You might recognize the abuse. You might recognize the disadvantage in your trip journey to work by the traffic or something. But instead of generating anger or resentment, aggression, the mind of contentment diminishes all of those responses. So to see the value in contentment is a way, I think, to deal with the way our karma ripens. So we will experience catastrophes. We will experience unpleasant circumstances. So just to tell a story, one of the founders of this centre, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he was in Nepal during the very large earthquake that they had, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever it was, 5 or 6 years ago. I think it was before COVID from memory. But anyway, I can't remember dates. But anyway, a few years ago, and it was an incredible catastrophe. And he was with a group of various Western students and other students. And one of them became very panicked and was really, in a very panicked state. And Lama Zopa turned to her and said, "Do not act like a person who has never heard a word of Dharma." So the whole point of all of these teachings, like contentment, understanding karma, practicing mindfulness and alertness, developing resilience, developing some peace and calm in your mind, the whole point of that is that when we're presented with a difficult circumstance, is that we do not fall into the trap of reacting with affliction. So do not act like a person who has never heard a word of Dharma. It's a really great instruction for us, so that you lose your job, your wife leaves you, you have financial difficulty, you have all sorts of different problems. You lose the grand final, the light flickers. You know, the tea is awful. There's no cake when you go out there. You know, these are all experiences we have. And part of mindfulness and alertness is to observe or to, you know, see clearly what you are experiencing. You know, to actually see what you are experiencing and understand it. And then look at, if it's not particularly satisfactory experience, then look at changing it. You know, we can change the experience that we have. And I think contentment, having a mind of contentment, is a good protection for our experience. And once again, I've spoken a bit too much. So let's do some meditation. Is there anybody here for the very first time tonight? Oh, a few. Welcome. Yes, good. So we'll just do a simple meditation. Again, concentrating on the breath. And ideally we concentrate on the awareness of the breath coming in and out. Not the physical sensation, but the awareness. The awareness. So let all other thoughts drop away from your mind and turn your attention onto the breath and keep it there absolutely 100% without distraction. So keep your attention just completely on the breath. Don't let any distraction take your mind away. Just hold it on the breath. And bring your attention back to the room. So we've got time for some discussion or questions for anybody.
Does that get derailed by the light? I feel like we got off the topic of karma, or is that just getting you just went with it?
So the question is, did we get off the topic of karma? No. I think I wanted to talk a little bit about mitigating, trying to mitigate the unsatisfactoriness of our experience. And so I think the mind of contentment is one place to start. You know, there's lots of other techniques. There's lots of techniques. But the even-mindedness of contentment doesn't get caught in the ups or the downs, the highs or the lows. It's equanimity, an equanimous mind in relation to experience. You know, so that's one of the things they talk about is an equanimity in, you know, not going to the extremes. Yeah. Yeah.
Say you stub your toe. In that moment, it's enormously painful, and you might swear. It's hard to imagine feeling contentment at that specific time. So, how do you manage that?
Yeah. So the question is about stubbing your toe. All right, so there's a couple of ways of thinking about that circumstance. From your experience, when you stub your toe, what happens in your mind?
Well, I was thinking the physical, so the immediate physical thing, which is pain.
Yeah, we all know about the pain. I'm thinking about how do you process that experience?
I mean, you might think, oh, that was clumsy, or what was that rock doing there? My shoes don't fit properly.
So what are all those? What are all those? What are all those things?
They're probably from my perspective, from my brain set.
Yeah. So has anybody else got some? Yeah, Jackson. Yeah. What do you got to say?
I don't know.
Oh.
I'm learning.
No, but I think what I was trying to draw out of you was, yes, there is a physical sensation. But then there's that aspect of blame or reason. There's some, there's a mental process that we are adding on to the experience. And that's the thing to try to understand, because that often makes the experience a lot more worse, more worse, is that good English? Worse, that's the word I was looking for. And, it adds to our suffering and agitation about the experience. So one way that whatever the cause is, I've obtained this human body. And one of the they talk about the 3 types of suffering of the human body. But one of the ones that's very interesting is that this physical body we have is a magnet for suffering. And it's, we got 10 toes. All 10 of them are equally capable of being stubbed on the corner of a bit of furniture or a stone or a doorway or, something, So we've just got this propensity for this body to attract suffering. So when we stub our toe, in a sense, no surprise. No surprise there. That's what this body does. It just is a magnet for suffering and negative experience. And then yet we experience this incredible shock. But the reality is this body is a magnet for suffering, whether it's itchy skin or scratchy hair or sunburnt or food stuck in our teeth or whatever, like every aspect is just this sort of difficulty in our body. Uncomfortable in a chair, uncomfortable on the floor, uncomfortable standing, So then we have to look at what mental trip am I adding onto that reality? And we're then looking at blame and accusation and anger that somebody else put the chair there, or resentment that the chair is there and my stupid husband bought me that chair and I never liked it and now I've, like these are the things that we add into every experience. The light bulb, I changed it yesterday and I pulled it out of a box and I'm thinking, I wonder if I've put this in this box of light bulbs because it's faulty, And so then there's this whole trip, like a whole mental. And so the bulk of our suffering is not so much the stubbing of the toe, but the mental complication that we add onto that. And that goes with relationships, with work, with traffic, with everything, And so mindfulness and alertness can show us what we are adding onto a circumstance, and that's what we can tackle. We, in a sense, with this body, I can't do much about the way this body reacts to stubbing my toe. It's pain. There's a sensation. There's a sensation. Potentially, I'm identifying that sensation as undesirable. But is it possible to identify a painful sensation as desirable? Yes, we can, doing exercise, like going for a run, lifting weights, getting an injection, giving blood. We can identify, I've given blood a bit, and I like to watch the needle go into my arm. Because it's interesting, I think, this, I watch the needle go into my arm. And, it's a sensation. There's no question, it's a sensation. It's a sensation. But can I identify, like as a meditational exercise, I look at the needle going in, and can I identify that as a good thing? Because I'm giving blood. That sensation. I look at that, I feel that sensation. Can I identify that sensation as a good thing? Giving birth, is another example. Not that I've given birth, but I'm sure there's a lot of mothers have identified the birthing experience as a good sensation. Yeah. No, anyway, it's a hypothetical. That's a step too far, sorry.
When you were saying this body, this human body is actually magnifical pain and suffering, I remember you saying, well, if you've got a cold, you'll drink a glass, but you're alive. Because if I wasn't alive, I wouldn't be feeling it. So I think that was
yeah.
If I had diabetes and my toes were numb,
yeah.
and I wouldn't feel it.
Yeah. Not so good. But I think the point here is with any experience in life is there is the experience itself, and then there's a whole lot of baggage that we attach to it, and we exaggerate, and we connect it. We connect it to things that are not necessarily connectable. Like stubbing your toe on a chair, and then feeling resentment for the person who bought the chair. That sense of blaming. Our natural inclination, which for most of us is a natural inclination, to seek to blame somebody other than myself for the circumstance.
What about in situations where it's not like the lie or stubbing the toe? What about when it's actually another human being that is consciously, intentionally hurting someone else? So when another human's on the receiving end of whether it's physical, emotional, psychological, like soul abuse.
Yeah.
How could there be any good from that? So how do you process that? How is there any sense of contentment from that? That's horrible circumstances. That's excruciating experience. So how do you cope and come out the other end without not necessarily feeling negative, feelings for that person, but to, I guess, heal from the pain of what someone chose to do to someone?
Yeah. So this is the last 5 weeks. I've approached this whole question of cause and effect very gradually, and the reason is that of the different possibilities, whether things are caused, whether things are random, whether there's a creator that's controlling everything, or whether there's some universal energy or something that is controlling everything, or whether there's no control and no purpose and nothing, all these different possibilities, for us to first of all look at those and look at your own disposition. And so particularly in regard to cause and effect, I believe that it's important to come to a point where you accept cause and effect. And once you've fully accepted cause and effect, and the best thing is to just look at yourself, because when you start to look at others, it gets complicated, and you have to have a lot of high-level tools to be able to do that. But let's say it's wise to just stick with yourself, and then to think, my experience, unpleasant as it is, somehow or other, I have caused it. Somehow or other, I have caused it. So that's the challenge. That's the challenge as to whether we think that or not. Because if we think this is so unfair, there's no reason for this, there's absolutely, I have done nothing to deserve this losing my job, being attacked, suffering this calamity, stubbing my toe or whatever, that if you, what I'm sort of been trying to talk about is to cross this bridge of accepting cause and effect first. So once you've accepted cause and effect, even though we may not know the ins and outs of it, then nothing that I have experienced in life, just talking about myself, is unfair. Nothing is unfair. Nothing is undeserved. Nothing is, inappropriate to my creation. And that's difficult, but that's why, a lot of Buddhists think, because, when I like this stuff. I do like this stuff. But, just reading in here, like killing, in the past, if we've killed somebody, the consequences of killing are that my lifespan will be shortened. So the actual action of killing, what the action of killing does, it takes what is the most precious thing, even if it's an ant or a fly, the most precious thing that it possesses is its own life. And so the act of killing is taking from somebody or some living creature its most precious thing and terminating it and shortening it. And so then the consequences of that is that we ourselves will then experience a shortened life with a lot of sickness and personal misfortune. So we might sort of say, why am I so unlucky? But the idea of accepting cause and effect is that I can say to myself, no matter how bad my circumstances are, that somehow I am responsible. And then from that thought, I can then think, if I create the causes for a good life, a good future life, if I create the causes for a good human life, wealth, through patience to create good companions, pleasant, peaceful environment, I can do that. So the trouble is, if we get too caught up in trying to justify the rights and wrongs of the world, it's an immense problem. The world is an immense problem. But the way I've tried to approach cause and effect here is, if I accept cause and effect, then there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Because if I want a good life, all I have to do is accumulate the causes for a good life. That's what I have to do. If I want to have a peaceful environment, to be free from violence, to be free from threats, to be free from aggression, then I need to create the causes for that. If I don't have the causes, I won't have the result. So the four aspects of karma. Karma is definite. The cause and the effect are related. They're related. Then karma increases. The consequence of actions increase, and also we're continually increasing our karma. And you cannot experience a result for which you haven't created the cause. And And then the last one is that the karmas, the actions are never exhausted. They are always potent in our continuum. So, it's a pretty, it's a pretty terrifying picture for us individually. So it's hard enough for us to look at our own circumstance without trying to look at the circumstance of everybody. But and look, it is difficult. The innocent child and So anyway, look, there's no shortage of complications to talk about. But yeah. Okay, so I'm going to end it there. But thank you very much for coming the last few weeks, and we'll do a dedication. So this is again another karmic, this is the way we actually work with karma, is if we do something worthwhile, we really rejoice in it, and we try to dedicate it to the benefit of others. So coming together, meditating, talking, listening is something very virtuous. We can call it virtuous. So you imagine that it takes the form of white light and then bring it above the crown of your own head. So everybody's virtue tonight, imagine that it takes the form of white light that dissolves into you and completely fills your body, making your body just light, composed of light, and your mind very open and clear. And then thinking of others, and with a sense of compassion for their suffering. So we can visualize all other living beings, and then with a sense of compassion for their suffering. They do not want suffering, but they have suffering. Then imagine that you radiate out all of the benefit from tonight, and rays of light go out to every living being and bring them into a state of happiness. Whatever problems they face are dissolved. And then imagine that light dissolves back into you. So next week, Claire Callanan will be teaching the Monday nights. I'm not exactly sure what she's covering, but certainly I think meditation methods, I think in the newsletter, I think that's what it says. I didn't read it all, but so Claire's a very experienced teacher. So she'll be here next month. And so thank you very much.